Hey, family. This is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, this is episode 103. 103 straight weeks. It's crazy to think that we've been on for this long, but we're here. If you are a first time listener, watcher, or subscriber, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We talk about faith, family, and finances, among other things. If you are a return listener, watcher, or subscriber, thank you so much for joining us again. Hopefully, we're adding value to your lives on the way to the M's. Because as always, we are on the way to the M's. Now, I've been on a roll lately with having guests. A lot of times you'll see me on here by myself, but these last couple weeks I've had a lot of guests, and I have another special guest today. We have Bree Khan from the Childfree Wealth Inc. And she's here to educate us on what it means to be child free and wealthy at the same time. So, Bree, thank you so much for joining us today. Clap it up.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
having me. I'm very
Yes,
excited to be here today.
absolutely. So, Jen, Bree, excuse me, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, just give us a small snapshot of who you are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Breakon, like you said, and I'm a child free wealth specialist. That means is I work with child free wealth, and I'm a financial planner. We do life and financial planning for people who don't have kids and aren't planning on having kids. Whether you got there by choice or whether life took you on a journey where you didn't have kids and then it wasn't necessarily your choice, it doesn't matter. It's just when you don't have kids, your life and your finances change.
Yes. We are going to get into it. And if you guys remember, I had Dr. J on here from Child Free Wealth Inc. And he broke a lot of things down to us. And it was a very, very interesting and very good interview. Before we get started with the interview, I just want to give Dr. J a shout out. He dropped a lot of nuggets on that interview, and he also introduced me to Die with Zero. That book was amazing.
It
So
is.
just just so you know a little bit about me, Bree. I'm a budget guy. I love budgeting. I feel like that's the way to wealth. You know, you'll have more money after you reduce your expenses. You'll have more money to invest, things of that nature. But I didn't grow up with money. So I
Mhm.
was in the mindset of hoarding, investing, hoard, invest. And I'm sure you've probably encountered a lot of people like that. And when I read that book, it broke it down in the most elementary terms of why it's good to spend the money.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to give Dr. J a shout out and thank him for introducing me to that book. Have you read that book?
Absolutely, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the foundation of so much of what we do because so many of our clients, want to die with zero.
Yeah.
So I have read it and I love that book.
Yeah. It's a really, really good book. If you have not read the book, I'm not getting paid for any of this, but it was a really good book. And anytime I read a good book, I always recommend it. So with that said, I said that I didn't grow up with money, right? So it made me handle money a certain way. Again, hoarder mentality, spend a little bit. I'm glad I have my wife because she's the spender, I'm the saver, and we balance each other out, right? So my question to you is, growing up, what was money like for you? Did you learn about money growing up? Did your parents talk about it? Because I know with mine, we didn't really talk about money in the house.
Yeah. I guess my family was kind of, I don't know, just quiet about money.
Mhm.
Um, but it was never a conversation of you couldn't get something. I grew up very fortunate and my parents did have money.
Mhm.
And so I had a lot of opportunities, but it was if you don't have cash to pay for it, you can't afford it. You need to live by a budget. Okay, great. And so many of these things they didn't actually teach me. They just told me about the principles. Tell people my grandma for years walk into her house. The very first thing you'd see is Dave Ramsey's book with the scissors and the credit card on the
Yeah.
front, and just like walk in. That's the first thing you'd see in her house in her kitchen. And I don't think it was necessarily bad. I don't think they were trying to do anything harmful. Um, it was just you were taught to save continuously. Even now when I get gifts, I always save half of it because that was in every single card that I got for birthdays, Christmas. It was, you have to save half of this, you have to save half of this. And it was definitely like a hoarder mentality. Like I could spend the other part on things I wanted or things I needed. But have like such a resistance to wanting to spend money at times because of that. In fact, today I said, "Oh, hey, I need to get a new zipper on my winter coat because it's been just like the bottom, at a certain point they don't work anymore." And
Yep.
my spouse goes, when did you buy that coat again?" I said, "Freshman year of college, which has been years ago now." They
Yeah.
said exactly, just buy a new coat. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm just going to replace the zipper on it. And so I think that really impacted me and how I grew up really just there are things that still stick with me. And then I have learned though from Die with Zero, especially to be a little bit more like I can spend money on things if I want. It's still hard,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it has definitely been a journey.
Yeah. Same with me. It's and we're not in a bad financial situation, but at the same time, I think it's a mindset,
Mhm.
and I still have a hard time sometimes spending the money, but we'll get over it. So you're one special guest, and the reason being is because you said that you grew up pretty well off, right? But then
Mhm.
you also said that your parents didn't teach you about money. And I think in the community of people who don't grow up with money, you think that people with money teach their kids about money.
Yeah.
So can you tell me how you figured money out if your parents didn't necessarily teach you? I'm sure they taught you something, but not how to set up a budget and things of that nature.
Yeah, so I grew up and didn't really, learn a ton. What I
Mhm.
did learn was I got a check register and I got a debit card. And I had money in my account, I could spend it, but I had to fill out my check register. And I was not good about not spending money. I spent a lot of money every week on things, but it was always okay because it would just be refilled. As long as I had my check register filled out and could say what I spent money on
Mhm.
and gave like the date, the place, the reason why I bought it and how much it was, I would get more money to spend.
This is with you giving your parents this check register.
Yes. So
Okay, cool.
they
I just want to make sure I understood. Okay.
Yeah, my mom sat me down and me and my sibling down and said, "Okay, here's a card. You can spend whatever's on it, but you have to fill out this check register if you want more." And so I did. I filled it out all the time and I would get more money. But that didn't actually teach me that no, I couldn't just get more money because in real life, just if you fill out a check register, you're not getting more money in your bank account
For sure.
automatically. So I did that and then I ended up going to college. Um, Worked my butt off because again that loans are not a good thing. You have to pay for cash for everything. And so then it was I needed to work because I needed to go to college and I couldn't take on student loans. And so I was working really, really hard. And at one point I worked 4 different jobs to try and just have enough money to pay for the semester every time.
Oh
And
wow.
then when I got to the semester and time to go, every time that I'd say, okay, I need to figure this out now and I need to pay for it, then my parents would be like, nope, whatever's not covered by scholarships, we got, don't worry about it. But they didn't tell me that in advance. So it was just like my entire college career. It was me working really hard, trying to pay for college, and then, realizing, oh, they were actually going to cover it. Except for one semester, I did leave college because of some medical things
Okay.
and spent half the money on the tuition money I got reimbursed on furniture.
Mm.
And the next semester, when I went back to college, I was not going to tell them that I had done this because they had given me this money and that was terrifying. So I worked my butt off and was just taking and making payments every month directly to the school. They had a payment plan. And I don't remember how exactly it was that I could do it, but I set up a payment plan and I paid them every month and I didn't have to take out any loans. So I ended up graduating without any loans. They had provided a car for me, my parents had done. And during this time, I realized, well, if I'm working really hard and saving all this money, expecting that I need to pay for my own college, and then they're actually stepping in and paying for it, here I end up with money and I don't know what to do with it.
Mm.
And my dad just said, save your money, you got to start saving money. And he didn't really say more than that. So, of course, I went online and I was looking for people. And eventually I figured out, oh, I can invest the money. Okay, how do I do that? And so I opened up an investment account and I had opened up a Roth IRA at the point in the end of college and put money in there. And I just kept filling it, filling it. And the first time I actually had ever met with any sort of financial planner, it was the one that was provided me through my work. And he came, and the first thing he said, this guy just really grinds my gears to this day. But he said, "Do you even know what a retirement account is?" I was like, "Yeah, I do. And I've been putting money into one for the past 3 years by myself." So, so it was the internet. It was
Yeah.
just learning all these things and making little mistakes along the way. And then on the internet, just figuring out like, okay, my parents are telling me this, but they're not actually telling me what I have to do. So I'm gonna go search it. And that's what I did.
Got it. That's awesome. That's a good story.
Yeah.
So you graduate college, and what did you do after that, like for work?
Yeah, I was in marketing. So I worked
Okay.
in marketing for 5-ish years, worked for a couple different businesses, eventually ended up saying, I'm done with this. I'm tired of it. I'm gonna go do it on my own. And I did that and I worked for different clients and just, did freelance marketing for people for a period of time and enjoyed it. I enjoyed the flexibility that freelance gave me because I could be wherever I wanted to be and work with the people I wanted to be. But I eventually just got burned out in marketing. So that's how now I'm in finance. Yeah.
So that's very fascinating to me. So when you were doing freelance marketing, you were pretty much an entrepreneur at this point, right? Pretty
Yeah.
much. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I quit my
So
full-time job. I was just doing it all on my own.
what gave you the belief that you could do something so foreign?
Um, Probably I don't like people telling me no, honestly.
I like it.
Yeah. I I have always been the person to just go and say, I can do this and then do it. Um, and not really listen to people telling me like, well, maybe you shouldn't, or, maybe you should try this. But I also watched one of my parents the week after I graduated from high school, they actually left their job and started a business. And so I had watched them do that. Um, a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, and it was just like, okay, if you can do this and you're, in your 50s, well, I can do this. So
Yeah.
I just tried it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because a lot of times when you're starting something new, there's a lot of fear in it. Um, and I'm always fascinated by people who just break through whatever fear or whatever voices that are in your head, telling you don't do it, or hey, this is difficult. Then you couple that with people telling you, hey, you probably shouldn't do this because of their fears, telling you
Mhm.
that you shouldn't do it. So it's always fascinating to me talking to an entrepreneur of how they broke through, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I remember going and talking to the CPA and saying, like, hey, I have money, I have all this. And I was just kind of venting to them. And they said, don't worry, when your one parent did this, your other parent had the exact same fear. Their life is just like they have a different life and different risk tolerance. And I was like, I have money to support myself. My expenses are super low. I can pay myself and make it through on what I'm making now. And I intend to pick up more clients. So let's just do this. So I did.
That's awesome.
What's going on, family? This is Che Willis from Wealth as a Journey. Did you know that we just started a wealth building community? In this community, we meet once a month on Zoom. We discuss financial areas of opportunity. We discuss wins and strategies to get you to the M's. In anybody's wealth building journey, if you're just starting out, it can be super lonely and difficult. In this community, we're also going to hold you accountable to where you say you want to be. So if you need the accountability, if you need the family atmosphere, if you need help getting to your desired financial result, come join the community. My website is www.wealthisajourney.com. Join the community today to get to your financial result. Thank you.
Um, so how did you get with Dr. J? Did you guys start the company together? How did that come about?
Yeah. It was an accident, really. It was I had been recommended a Facebook group that was for people who didn't have kids. And I was like, oh, I don't have kids. Well, I guess I'll join this, like, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and one night there were two different posts, and one said, "What do you do now?" And the other one said, "What do you want to do?" And by this point, I knew I wanted to really get out of marketing and I wanted to switch to finance. And so I commented on both and I said, I'm in marketing, in social media management primarily. And the other one said, I said, I want to be a CFP, I want to be a certified financial planner. And he saw both those comments and said, I'm a CFP. If you have questions, I'm happy to talk to you. Otherwise, I'd love to send your information on to somebody else. I know people who need marketing help. And so I was like, okay, sure, this guy's willing to talk to me. Why not? I went and set up a time. We had been messaging back and forth for months before
Mhm.
we actually talked, just because there were a lot of things going on at the time with my life, and I was getting married, and I was like, "Yep, I want to talk to you, but I gotta talk to you in like 2 months after my wedding happens." And met with him. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. It was 2 hours. That happened again, and I just said, "Can I have a job?" And he said, "Let me think about that."
Mhm.
And then called me back a couple days later and said, I think this can work." And so now we've been working together, and he started the company a couple of years. I always get confused. Like, I think it was 1.5, maybe 2 years before I joined.
Mhm.
And it was really just kind of him. And now there's a team of us. So yeah.
That's awesome. So walk me through what it takes to be a certified financial planner.
Yeah. So there are a few different things you have to do. You have to have a 4-year degree. That's the main thing for it. Then you have to go through additional coursework. Depending on your degree, sometimes you can get that coursework written off. And like, because if you have some particular degree in finance or went to a certain college, then it's part of your college education.
Mhm.
But in my case, I had to go through additional coursework, take an exam, which the exam is very, very long. It's just like it's an all day exam, so it's kind of just tiring.
Mhm.
Um, and then you have to do experience hours, which can be either 2,000 hours, or not 2,000 hours, sorry, either 4,000 hours or 6,000 hours. So 2 to 3 years, depending on what path you take. If you take the apprenticeship path like I'm doing, it's the 4,000 hours and 2 years. Otherwise, if you do it, and that requires you to work with a CFP and have them sign off on all your hours. Otherwise, if you do the 6,000 hour path, that's about 3 years. And
Mhm.
then there's also just like an ethics requirement you have to fill out. So you can't, have felonies. You can't commit any financial fraud. You can't have bankruptcies, anything like that. And then that's sort of the process. So I'm a couple months out from finishing my experience hours at this point for the certification.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you're going to pass and do wonderful things. My question to you is you talk to the person who may be watching this and say, "Hey, I want to be a certified financial planner one day." What's the toughest part? Because a lot of people, when they sell you on something, they sell you on the nice things, the beautiful things, the rosy things. But I know anything that you do, there's going to be some type of challenges that you face. So what challenges have you faced along the way that you can tell that person about?
Yeah. Um, there's like a couple things. I think it can be kind of exhausting to go through some of the material because it's pretty dry, honestly.
Hmm.
It's it's a lot of different material and it can be pretty dry. Just sometimes you're like, oh man, this is not that interesting to read about. Everybody has their kind of their favorite parts. And I remember trying to get through the insurance section, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful. And so it just felt like it took such a long time. The insurance section for me took quite a while to get through because I just didn't really enjoy it. But then there's things like estate planning, which I love estate planning, and I got through that very quickly.
Hmm.
So knowing that you're going to have areas in which they're not fun and they're kind of exhausting is a big thing. And just having that discipline to go ahead and still complete them. I think it's important to also have somebody who's kind of in your corner and cheering you on during that time because it gets to be a lot of studying after a while, especially if you're also working alongside of it. And it was, I mean, it's the same amount of time essentially that I spent in college because I even after I realized my parents were paying for all stuff, I continued to work full time and go to
Mhm.
college. Um, and I took like the max credits you could take, so I was very familiar with a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I'd been at that point because I'm a career changer. I'd been a few years out from college, and going back to that feeling of okay, working full time and also doing all these courses, it just kind of gets to be tiring and exhausting. And there are so many days where you're like, ah, I could really just go out and do something else, but I need to get this done.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, having a timeline too is super important because there are some people I know who take a couple of years to go through it. Um, and Dr. J was like, I would encourage you to take a couple of years, like do at least one a month and really get this done. So I started everything in September or I started all the coursework like September of 2023.
Hmm.
And then I finished the um, coursework in May of 2024 and passed the test in November of 2024. So it takes a period of time, but I think if you can get that done and now it's like, okay, it's a bit of a relief.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
done. You're done everything.
I just have to fill out the ethics requirement and I've printed it all out and just
Okay.
highlight like I'm very paranoid that I'm accidentally gonna fill out like I don't want to accidentally mark that I've had, a financial felony. So I've printed it all out. I filled it
Mhm.
out. I just need to go in online and put it in and then finish my hours. And so that'll be a couple months away yet.
Got it. That's
So,
awesome. So, what when you pass these tests or pass these certifications, right?
mhm.
Or
Yeah.
courses, are you allowed to then sell securities or whatever portion of the test that you took? Are you allowed to do that then, or you are allowed to do it along the way?
So you have to have some sort of license to do that. Once your CFP is done, then yes, you can do all these things. I took another exam, another license back right away in 2023.
Mhm.
And it's called the Series 65 exam, and that is registered or not registered. Hold on. Let me grab my book.
Yeah.
There's I always mess the name up. Okay. So investment advisor representative is what you become, like what your license is. And then you can work, so that's IAR, and then you can work for an RIA, which is registered investment advisory. So finance loves to use the letters RIA and IAR and
Yeah.
IRA all in different orders for
Yeah.
different things.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So
Man. So have you don't had you haven't had a client currently, not yet.
no, I have. I have.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yep. Yeah. So this nice little book here is the book you take to take the 65 exam, the Series 65. You can start working with clients then and
Mhm.
start planning with them. The CFP is just really a heck of a lot more work and a lot more knowledge to go alongside. And it has like you pass the test essentially for the Series 65, you get registered, you're good to go, but
Mhm.
it doesn't require any experience hours. So the CFP has experience hours to go along with it, so it's really more of like a hey, you have to kind of do this work for a period of time too.
Got it. Okay. That's what I was trying to make sure because um the way it sounded was that you can't pretty much work with anybody because then I'm thinking to myself, well, how are you making a living
Mhm.
while not making money selling securities or working with clients? So,
Yeah. There are options to like if you want to do these and you don't have an exam, like you could do paraplanning, which is
mhm.
kind of the back end of stuff. You can't talk to clients really that way because there's just too much liability, but you can be the person who essentially takes notes in meetings and gets all the documents ready. You can't do any of the planning, but that's an option for you.
Mhm.
Typically, most people do a Series 65 if they're doing the CFP and they just don't have their CFP yet, since that takes time, they'll do the Series 65 so they can at least start working with clients.
Got it. Okay. So, I'm thinking you look pretty young, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, there's a 50 plus person that may look at you. You're trying to help them out. They may look at you like, how are you going to help me You were so young. Have you experienced that?
It's only come up a couple times,
Okay.
and most of the time, it's only been an issue for one that I can think of where they've been like, no, I don't want to work with you at all. Um, and that's fair. Everybody has their own preference.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like some people have mentioned it, but most of the time they don't
Yeah.
really care that too much.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's cool. So, if you wouldn't mind just kind of diving into child-free wealth, if you wouldn't mind diving into that, and because when Dr. J explained it to me, and you have a niche, right?
Mhm.
And the way that you guys niche that far down was genius, in my opinion. So, if you wouldn't just mind just diving into what that is, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, so we work with people who don't have kids and aren't planning on having kids. And honestly, I mean, you say it's really like deep and dive down. We don't feel like it is because
Yeah.
there's so many people in the United States who don't have kids and aren't planning on having kids. And we, honestly, we could probably dive even further and have specialty areas for everybody,
Hmm.
just because there are a ton of different things out there and a ton of different things to know. And we got there really because Dr. J went through the CFP coursework and was like, hey, there's no mention of if you don't have kids on here. And if you're not planning on having kids, everything is you don't have kids yet, or you're an empty nester. That doesn't fit everyone. So that financial advice doesn't necessarily fit them and our clients. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so with that, how do you instruct people to invest where they can, I guess, die with zero because they don't have anybody to leave it to, right? So how do you
Mhm.
instruct those people to invest without giving too much information? Yes.
Yeah. So, one of the first questions we always ask people is whether or not they want to die with zero. Some people do. The majority of our clients do. Some don't. And in fact, so many of our clients do want to die with zero
Mm-hmm.
that when the few that say they don't, I'm always like, what? Oh, yeah. Okay. We tend to follow though overall, just a simple passive investing strategy, and it's very like similar to Boglehead strategy, just quite simple. Um, Dr. J actually has a new book that kind of goes over all of that. So simple index funds in the market, not really into real estate investing because there's a lot that goes on there. And
Mm-hmm.
our primary focus, or I guess I should say the name of the book, not just say he has a book.
Yeah, please. Yeah, if you don't mind. Yes.
Yeah. So his book is called The Childfree Guide to Life and Money, and it just came out at the beginning here of 2025. But when we're working with clients, we're really focusing on how can we just make your finances simple so that your life can be amazing. So sometimes people will come to us and they'll have a bunch of rental properties, and we'll have the conversation of, is this really something that you enjoy? And the amount of times they're like, no, I don't enjoy this at all. That's a consideration. We've seen times where, hey, yeah, you have these rental properties, but they're actually costing you money because you haven't factored in all these other things. And so most of the time, clients end up just selling their rental properties. I can't think of many who keep them because I can't think of many who actually enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're like, I don't want to be on vacation, have a call about whatever breaking.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
I know from experience. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're just like, I don't want to do that. I want to have the freedom and flexibility to move around and do the things I want to do. So that, the same thing could be said for buying a primary house. You know, I think many people are now learning that primary homes are not necessarily, something you're going to make a lot of money on because whatever upgrade you do, and it can be a lifestyle choice, and there's nothing wrong with that. But many of our clients are like, hey, I'd rather just rent and then be in a place for a couple years, move, try something new, do all those things. So it's really building in a ton of flexibility and allowing for that in our client's plan.
That's good. So my next question would be is the clients that you currently work with, are they already fiscally responsible, or do you have to kind of coach some of them on how to, I guess, build their budget so then they can have money to invest?
Yeah, it's a combination. Primarily, when we get clients, because we have a more high touch service, many of them are coming to us, and we're not really at the budget coaching level as
Sure.
far as pricing. And
Mhm.
so we're not doing a ton of that. We will do some of it. We'll review the budget, we'll check on things. You know, I had a conversation today of, yeah, that's great, but don't forget you also have housing expenses. And I know you said you have your emergency fund here, but part of owning a house is things are going to go wrong. And
Mhm.
that's not unexpected. That's an expected expense. So let's make sure we have money set aside from that. And the emergency fund is for like things that are really going wrong, like one of you loses your jobs and you because you haven't quite hit financial independence yet, or one of you gets really sick, anything like that. So that's kind of the conversation we have with many of our clients versus sitting down creating a budget. I have done sitting down and creating a budget, but it's
Sure.
not a big part of what we do.
Okay, but they're pretty much already, I guess, well off in a sense where they don't necessarily they already have that kind of that box checked already.
Yeah, if we're working with them on a one-on-one basis, then they're typically already like closer to that point. We're getting there. We do what we call checkups, and that is we don't do free consultations for anybody. We just do a checkup meeting.
Mhm.
And that's really us taking a bunch of information. They book a time, they pay for it, and then we send them a form as well as access to our financial planning system. They give us a ton of information, we review it, and we really just create a high-level diagnostic. So, do you know when you take your car in and you get the little pamphlet that says, like, look for these things and they're red, yellow, green all the time?
Yep.
We do the same thing with their life and finances based on the information they've given us. And then we also have a meeting with them and have a conversation. So sometimes when we're seeing clients through the checkup process, then it will be a little bit more, hey, we need to work on a budget. And then they typically go through our academy path, which is more self-directed, and they can come to Q&As that's included in the academy, or they can book additional hours for one-on-one help if they need it, but it's not a primary thing. Most of our clients have started to get to a point where maybe their investments, they've been growing forever and they're at the point ready to retire, or they want to do something different and they have a little bit more net worth behind them.
Got it. Okay. No, that's good. That's good. Because I was thinking like once somebody stops working, right? And they have investments working for them, their money's making money for them. I would think that they would need to have some type of plan in place financially, budget wise, to make sure that they don't necessarily run out because when you're working, you have a lot of money coming in, and a
Hmm.
lot of times people think that that money's never going to stop coming in. But then when you stop working, you got to kind of possibly pull back a little bit on a lot of the spending that you were doing because your income is not as much potentially. But if you have a lot of investments working, then maybe they don't necessarily have to be concerned too much about that, I guess.
So we do what we call guardrails. Essentially, we look
Hmm.
at their investments and their entire portfolio and we look, okay, how much can you spend this year? Like, what's the
Hmm.
most amount that you can spend? And then what's the least amount that you should spend too to help bring that down?
Hmm.
And sometimes we hit clients and we're like, okay, yep, this is like right where we're at. Sometimes it's like, oh, let's bring in a little bit more income.
Hmm.
And it just depends on like, where exactly the client's at in their life. Because there are some clients who are working part-time and they're bringing in some income and they're also living partially on investments. So it just varies based off of each client. And yeah, it can be a check-ins. We have other clients where it's like, please go spend more money, and that's going to be your assignment. It's just to go spend more.
Yeah.
So it really varies based on everybody's different situation.
Nah, that's good. I know one of the big movements is the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. But you guys put a little bit a different twist on it, called the
Yeah.
FILE movement.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind explaining what that is and how that works.
So FILE is simply financial independence, live early. We're saying, hey, instead of working really hard, hitting financial independence, and then retiring early, let's live a little bit earlier. Let's still aim for financial independence. We would still want to get there, but also are there things you can do along your life to really enjoy your life? Maybe that means traveling more. Maybe that means cutting back on work or changing jobs. Or maybe it's just, hey, I'm going to take a sabbatical for a while and figure out what I want the next phase of my life to be before I go and do something else. It can just vary, but it's taking that time to intentionally live. And it's similar to Die with Zero in the sense of we want you to experience your life, not just spend your life trying to build a giant nest egg that you don't really care about. That's going
That's
to be left
awesome.
at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, now that's good. Have you worked with a client that you had to change their mindset of how they were um, saving money and kind of
Mhm.
just building this large nest egg and like, hey, listen, like you have enough money, go ahead and spend some of it. Like, can you break that down? Have you ever had a client like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's something that we have all the time. And I mean, I can think of so many examples just in this past week of like people I have met with and people I haven't met with yet, but I'm preparing some of their stuff and I'm going there, so many times people put on there, when can I retire? Like I really want to retire, but I don't think I have enough money. And I go, you have plenty. Like you're good.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
yeah.
So one of the biggest examples that I can think of is I met with somebody and they were closer to the traditional retirement age. They had done very well. They had saved their entire life and they could have retired yesterday if they wanted to, but they were adamant that they were going to keep working for a few years. And finally, I just said, what do you want to do with your life? And they didn't have an answer. They didn't know. And I asked them because it was clear that, they really weren't sure. And I
Mhm.
said, has anybody ever asked you that before? And they said, no, nobody's ever asked me that before. And that conversation to this day, it's been quite a while since I've had that conversation, but still has such an impact on me that this person would go through their entire life and nobody's ever asked them that before.
Mm, yeah,
And just brought that up of like, what do you want to do? What do you want it
yeah,
to look like? So it is
I,
a big mindset thing, but it
yeah. No,
happens.
I agree. I think the older I get, the more I see like the pattern in the loop that maybe our parents were in. So if
Mhm.
that person was retirement age, then that's probably what they saw that their parents were doing, and their parents were doing the same thing. They were working and basically until they died.
Mhm.
And when we don't have conversations around money, we don't have conversations around, hey, well, what do you want to do? Like, what do you really see your life looking like? Then we'll probably continuously be in this loop of just continue to work until you die. And I was in that loop. Well, I didn't want to work until I died, but I just really didn't have an idea of how much I actually needed to make in order to walk away. I'm always going to be doing some type of work. It's,
Mhm.
because I enjoy working, but I now from reading that book see that I need to be able to enjoy all of the fruits of my labor, which I wasn't
Yeah.
doing.
Mhm.
So,
It's it's so important. And I think many times it either takes time to get through that with a client to get them to feel comfortable with it. But one of the quickest ways for a client to realize that, and also kind of one of those heartbreaking ways for them to realize that, is watching somebody close to them go through some sort of near-death experience, whether
mm,
that be a family member, a friend, or even themselves, in which some sort of like there's been a medical scare or something's happened and they've quickly realized that it could be gone tomorrow, everything, and they could miss out on living their life. So I don't like when clients learn that lesson that way because it sucks and it's
yeah,
traumatic, but it does happen. And that is a very quick switch with a lot of people. Otherwise, it takes us time to work with clients to get comfortable with that.
yeah. Even now that we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about my corporate job and how I'm talking with people that I work with, and we're talking about PTO.
Yeah.
And the PTO is a thing too. Like people don't take PTO because I think that's what we learned. Like you work hard and you go through the thing, and that's what you're supposed to do. It's like a badge of honor not to take PTO, and it's
Mhm.
it's dumb. because you
Yeah.
work so no, because you work so hard and you need to enjoy your time off. And so
Mhm.
now I'm in the mindset of taking all of my time. Like sometimes I would carry over 7 days and I get 30. So why not take them and enjoy it? So
Yeah, that's so true. I set like I've been trying to set goals for myself of okay, I want to take this many days off in the year and I also want to be on the road working this many days of the year because I work remotely so I can work wherever I want to. And that's just something that I'll tell clients too is do we need to set one of your KPIs for the year, your key performance indicators, because so many times we're always asked to set those for work standards. I'm like, what if we just considered that taking your PTO or taking a minimum number of days off is a KPI? And you need to
yes.
track that and try and hit that throughout the year. And I think work culture can be, and can make it hard too, depending on our work culture is very good. We often have a joke that we will lock each other out of our accounts. Like, hey, you can't get into your email because
Yeah.
you're on PTO. Um, and it's just, hey, no, like take the time off, experience it. But yeah, I'm glad you're saying you're taking it all now because that's so so important.
Yeah. And I think it makes your life more enjoyable because
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but when I take vacation, I'm constantly looking forward to the vacation. So it makes me happy to look forward to something.
Sure,
So
yeah.
if I'm looking forward to PTO, I'm taking at least 30 days off in a year. I have something to look forward to at least once a quarter or however often I'm taking off. And I
Mhm.
feel like maybe even as a society, now that I'm thinking about it, we would be more happy if we weren't in that loop of I got to work hard. It's a badge of honor to just continue to work and not take your days and enjoy your life. But you have to set it
Yeah.
up that way too.
Yeah. But I have a question for you now, though.
Yeah,
So if you're constantly looking forward to your vacations and your PTO, are you not enjoying your days between that?
I am.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy, like, I know you enjoy running, right?
Yeah.
Hiking and running and things of that nature. So for me, I enjoy golfing.
Okay. Yep.
So I look forward to taking a long extended vacation to golf. So I'm
Hmm.
in April, I'm taking a golf trip. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm enjoying the day. No, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I have rough days, like everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
And I want to get away, but I can't, because of,
Mhm.
I have responsibilities here. But um, but I know that now it's in my future to continue to take my days off because I have them to take off. So I need to
Yeah.
use them and it gives me something to look forward to.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even I think, you say you're going on a golf trip, and I actually am going to be out next week on PTO. And, one of the days I'm not going anywhere. Like the first 2 days, I'm just hanging out at home. And I think that's important, and people forget that.
Yes.
Just, it's okay to take a day off and not do anything other
Yeah.
than lay around. That's
Yeah.
fine too.
Yeah.
So,
True. I agree with that too. I think when you take off, you try to jam everything into these few days, and then you need a vacation from the vacation that you just took. Happens all
yeah,
the time.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, my aim, is to have all my stuff done by tomorrow evening and then will not be logging into anything hopefully for a period of time. But I'm like mini vacation at home, go on my vacation for a few days, come back, have another little mini vacation at home, and just I mean, even my vacations, I've gotten to the point in life where I don't stack them full. I pick one thing a day and then whatever else I just show up and do if I feel like it.
Like it. I like that. And speaking of that, I know we're taking a deep dive on vacations, but
Yeah.
speaking of that, I incorporated in 2025. I incorporated think time
Mhm.
in my car because I'm on the road all the time.
Yep.
So I'm taking 30 minutes out of my day when I'm in the car to just turn the radio off. I'm not listening to anything. I listen to CNBC all the time,
Mhm.
and I turn everything off and I just think and just allow myself to process whatever my brain or information that I've received within that time frame. I just allow myself to process that, and it's been a game changer for me. I've been doing it for the last few weeks now, and it's been a game changer. Like I feel like I'm more clear.
Yeah.
because you have stuff coming at you all the time,
Yeah.
and just yeah, it's been a game changer. So I think that's a good little nugget for anybody who's listening to that.
Yeah. Think time is so, so important.
Yeah, yeah. So now this has been a great interview. I do have one or two more questions for you.
Yeah.
When you're working with a client, and this is for people who are listening or watching, if you're working with a client and they're not at their retirement or number where they want to
Mhm.
be, where they need to be to be able to leave and enjoy life, how do you set them up to get to that number? I guess it would be like how much money they're making, I would assume, but how do you set them up that way to be able to do that?
Yeah, so we have few different questions that we'll go through and ask. And I've actually just done a couple of these recently because I don't come across these super often. I would prefer that we come across them more often
Hmm.
of where a client isn't necessarily on track, but we can make a plan to get them there.
Sure.
Um, and usually what I'll do is I'll say, okay, let's try and sit down and we'll figure it out. And when clients meet with us, we talk a lot about life and we don't really do a ton with the financial plan, with the financial software. Most of that we do behind the scenes, then we present it to the client.
Hmm.
But sometimes I'll say, okay, let me share my screen and then just walk through different scenarios. We'll change like retirement age. What does that look like? Okay, maybe we retire sooner, but we're going to do something else. And, I jokingly say, like, okay, now you're going to go be a golf caddy. And so we'll put it in like, okay, how much do you think you're going to make being a golf caddy? Like, what's realistic for that? And we'll figure that out and add that in there and say, okay, well, you could retire from your full-time job at this point and then you're gonna need to work, whether it's the golf caddy or you do something else, but you just need to bring in this amount of income for a certain number of years, or maybe we need to invest a little bit more heavily, or certain goals. Are they things you super want to do, or is it something that you just put on there and you're like, I don't really feel like doing it anymore, actually?
Hmm.
So it's a lot of sitting down, running through different scenarios, and just that's fun to me is like, let's play with the different scenarios and see. Um, it just, it's got to be a process though, and a kind of an ongoing process. Because sure, I can tell you that you have to work till 65 and that's it. But that's not fun. That's
At
not
all.
actually, no. And that's not getting to anybody's goal. So it's sitting down, playing out those different scenarios, seeing what they look like. Things that can have an impact on somebody's financial plan is, if they're getting inheritance, that can have an impact. Well, when can they get it? Can they potentially get it sooner and get like annual gifts throughout their life? We have seen quite a bit of annual gifting happen,
Mhm.
which is when somebody is basically going to receive inheritance in the future, but instead they're starting to receive it now in the form of like every Christmas time they get a check for the annual exclusion amount. And so they get some money coming in now. That can have a different impact. It's just seeing what factors are there for you and that you can kind of play on or pull with and see how that works.
That's awesome. That's good. Bree, this has been a really, really good time. Very, very informative. And I think also your parents, first of all, they did an amazing job because one of my fears is being well off and then my kid being lazy. We're teaching him a lot of no, that's a real thing. Like
Yeah.
that's a real fear of mine.
Yeah.
Um, because I saw like again, I didn't grow up with money, but I saw a lot of kids who did, and
Mhm.
their lives didn't necessarily end up good, but some did. A lot
Mhm.
did. And I just didn't want my son being spoiled, even though he is
Yep.
to a point. To a point. But he's going to work. And I just seeing that gives me hope. Seeing you from you growing up well off, your parents teaching you the lessons, even though they didn't necessarily teach you all of it, they taught you a
Mhm.
lot of lessons that got you to where you are today. And shout out to your parents. Shout out to your parents. Yeah.
Yeah. They're pretty
Um,
great.
Bree, if you wouldn't mind just letting the people know, and I'll put everything in the description of the video, where they can follow you, where they can, if you have a podcast, I know you have a podcast, like where they can listen and all the fun things.
Yeah, so we make it pretty darn easy. Everything for us is just child-free wealth. So our website is childfreewealth.com, our podcast is Childfree Wealth, and then we're on the different socials at Childfree Wealth. So type that in and you can be sure to find us.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. My very last question is, where do you see child-free wealth in the next 3 to 5 years? I think I asked Dr. J this question. I'd like
Mhm.
to hear it from you as well.
Yeah, I hope we continue to grow and serve more people and bring on more planners, more clients, because there is a large need out there. And right now, we're a small team, we're a small but mighty team,
Mhm.
and definitely just help serve and impact the lives of so many more child-free people.
Awesome, awesome. Well, there you have it. There you have it, folks. We had another amazing podcast episode. I just want to again, first of all, thank Dr. J, and now thank Bree for being a guest on the podcast. And I wanted to apologize to you. I called you Jen earlier because I went to high school with a girl named Jen Khan.
Okay,
Yeah, but she
nice.
spelled her name different. It was like
Yeah,
Kuhn or something like that. But anyway,
yeah.
so I apologize for that. But anyway, thank you so much for being a guest on Wealth is a Journey. Guys, hopefully you guys got a lot of nuggets. Again, Wealth is a Journey. We will see you next week. Peace.